The tractor market has historically always been a duopoly between Kubota and John Deere.
It's been what? The tractor market has always been a duopoly between Kubota and John Deere? Well, Kubota didn't enter the U.S. market until 1972 with a compact tractor, and there are a bunch of companies like Farmall and International Harvester and Ford and all kinds of tractor companies that had owned the market and probably underestimated Kubota coming in with their little orange machines and their foreign sounding name. And if you'd went into a Farmall dealership in the 1980s, they would have said, don't trust that. You don't know how long they're going to be around, and you need to stick with an American company that's been making tractors for the last 70 years. And they would have been wrong. So it's always a mistake to underestimate the new guy in the market. So I started out this video playing a clip from Neil Messicks of Messicks Equipment here on YouTube. And Neil is also a owner and operator of a Kubota tractor dealership. And I've watched a lot of Neil's videos. I think he makes great videos that provide a lot of information, especially for new tractor owners. But the other day, he published a video that had several points I disagreed with. And towards the end, he made a couple of comments that I actually took personally, which has resulted in me making this video. So I want to do this as respectfully as possible. I don't know Neil personally, but he seems like a great guy, and he knows the tractor industry. He probably knows more about tractors than I ever will. But the great thing about opinions is that everybody gets to have one, and Neil has a right to voice his opinion on a topic, and this channel is my space to voice my opinion. And you are entitled to have your own opinion and disagree with both of us. And the great thing is we can all respect each other even when we disagree. So Neil's video was basically saying that Kubota and John Deere own the compact tractor market, and there are way too many brands competing underneath them for the remaining market share, and that he believes some of those brands will go out of business. So I think I want to go through this in order, starting with things I agree with Neil about, and things I disagree with him about, and then what I took personally. So things I agree with Neil on is that there's a possibility some of the tractor companies go out of business. And that was his main point, and I sort of agree with it. And I would also say that in a free market society, companies that don't perform need to go out of business. Everything should be merit-based. If you're not putting out a good product at a good price, then the market's not going to support you. Now, the part I'll get to in a minute that I disagree on that same topic is that we know which ones will go out of business based on their current size. Kubota was once the new guy, and the companies that were on the top when Kubota started are now being listed by Neil as being at the bottom. The next point that Neil made that I agree with is that the consumer needs to educate themselves about the company they're buying from to assess the long-term value of the tractor or any product that they're buying. Because if a company fails long-term, then the product you bought from them will lose resale value and it will be harder to get parts from them. That was a major point that he made, and I agree with him. And then there's the fact he said history will repeat itself, meaning that in the past, there have been competitors that came up to challenge John Deere and presumably Kubota, and those companies, some of them have went out of business. But in my mind, that's not what I would read as history repeating itself. When I hear history repeating itself, I hear that in the same way that Kubota disrupted the market, another company could be primed to do the same thing. And I would also say that everything changes over time. And there are big companies that we thought would always be power brokers that are just gone now. Sears went out of business. I mean, like, Nobody is too big to fail. So that would be my definition of history repeating itself. The next thing I want to say, and the next several things, will all be taking numbers from Neil's video. Neil said that he knew for a fact that at one point Kubota and John Deere represented 80% of the market, and he said that he believed that number had most likely declined to between 65 and 75%, but his best estimate was that that number is now 70% of the market. So according to Neil, the two big companies at the top have declined from 80% market share to 70%. That decline from 80% to 70% is a 13% decline in their market share. It sounds like 10, but losing 10% of the 80 they had, that's 13% of what they had. And if I was at the top of a market and I saw that the next competitor was gaining on me at that rate and I had lost 13% of the share I had, I wouldn't be like, see, boys, you all should go out of business. I'm at the top. I'd be like, uh-oh, I have a problem because I'm losing ground from where I was. And that's how I would think about it. Somebody else is gaining ground. The next one is just numbers. And I'm taking his numbers because he said these are publicly available official numbers in the industry, total tractor sales. Then he extrapolated from that what he believes John Deere and Kubota are selling and what is left. And he said that what is left is 45 to 63,000 tractors sold between 12 brands. All of that is Neil's information, not mine. But the next sentence, and this may sound trivial or like I'm making too big a deal about these numbers, but his video was based on numbers, so that's the numbers we're going to talk about right now. He said 45,000 to 63,000 tractors per year being sold between the other 12 brands. And he said that means most of these brands are selling between 2,000 and 4,000 tractors each. Well, I don't think Neil was trying to misinform us, but that's not math. The math, when you take 45,000 to 63,000 divided by 12 companies, means each is selling between 3,750 and 5,250. And that's close, just math in my head here, that's like close to a 50% difference between the numbers, the math he did in the video and what the numbers actually are. And there are a couple of those companies that have very little sales at all. So there are several competitors that are getting a pretty good number. Now, here's something I found really interesting, is that Neil's dealership sells Kubota and New Holland primarily. Kubota first, New Holland is their secondary brand. And he said, John Deere and Kubota are the kings. Everyone else is in trouble except for New Holland that I sell. Well, why did he make an exception for New Holland? I'm sure it's not because he sells them. It has to be for another reason. And he gave us a very logical, well-explained reason, and that is that New Holland is a successful company selling large ag tractors, and they have a valuable brand that they want to protect. And so even if the compact tractor sales aren't what they need to be, they have the infrastructure to support that compact market, and they want to protect their brand, so they're going to continue to support their product. And that really makes sense. I bet that's right. Because if they were a new company that just started up and had that same sales number, they wouldn't have the infrastructure to keep going. The problem with that story that he told, there's two problems. First is New Holland doesn't make their compact tractors. LS, which is one of the other 12 companies that we're worried about failing, makes at least a portion of the New Holland tractors, compact tractors, and before that deal, there was another company making them. So they're not even making their own tractors, but that's more the minor problem. The secondary problem with that conversation is all of the other brands, or almost all of the other brands, you could say the exact same thing. There are several legacy brands that are still doing really well with the large ag tractors, or they are in construction equipment like a Yanmar or like Case and Farmall and several of the other brands are still making big tractors. And then you could say the same thing about Bobcat and Bad Boy having tractors. They don't have to be completely profitable on their own with the compact tractors because they're already doing so much. And then the other brands that you can't say that about, those are gigantic multinational companies. Even the very smallest competitor in the U.S. tractor market, brand new, probably has almost no sales to this point, is Solus. And they are sold in 140 countries, and they are like 5th in the world in tractor sales. So there's no new companies just starting out from scratch and like trying to figure this out. And to tie into that point, these tractor brands are all commingled. Because Neil made the point that he used to sell Cub Cadet tractors, and some of those Cub Cadet tractors were discontinued. Cub Cadet no longer makes tractors. Now you can't get parts for them. Well, you may not have to worry about that as much as he made it sound like, because I'm going to pick a random example here. Let's say Bobcat decided they're going to quit selling tractors. I don't think they will. I think they're just going to continue because the Bobcat is so strong in other areas that they can support the compact tractors. But if Bobcat decided not to sell compact tractors anymore, would you still be able to get parts for them? Well, Bobcat's going to try to maintain their reputation and make those parts available. And besides that, Bobcat doesn't make their own tractors. Coyote makes those tractors. So as long as you know the comparable model, if Bobcat says we no longer sell compact tractors, you can go and get parts for your Bobcat from Coyote. And the bigger point to all of this is that I feel like it's kind of fear-mongering to say, let's only support the big companies because these big companies will always be here for us. And it's playing on the consumer fear that your tractor won't be worth anything. Is it possible that's true? Sure. But I don't really think it's a Kubota dealer's job to convince you of that. So Neil made the comment in his video that they can sell products on their own without throwing stones at another brand. But man, is he out here throwing some stones. That's what I heard in the video. He's saying, don't trust those other brands. They might go out of business. And these companies are not going out of business, while there is some chance that they stop selling compact tractors in this market. The next comment that Neil made that I've kind of already addressed, but I'm going to address it a little bit differently, is he said, if you look at the market today, it's a necessity that some of these companies drop out. Because it's not sustainable for Deere and Kubota to have 70% of the market, and the other companies, the other 12 companies, can't survive on 30%. Well, I talk to regular people all the time who come up to me at a show or in the comments or send me an email or a Facebook message and they say, I'm tired of this problem with Deere or this problem with Kubota, and I'm going to switch, and whatever they have to say. Or I've seen them at homesteading shows and they're like, man, I just can't pass up this price difference on this other brand. And I see a groundswell of people who are interested in some of the other brands. So Neil dismissively said it's not sustainable for these two brands to own most of the market and these other companies survive. It is quite possible that Kubota and John Deere used to have 80%, and now it's 70%, and in 10 years it'll be 50%, and all the other brands can survive on that 50%, and you never know where the market's going to go. So it doesn't bother me at all that a Kubota dealership would try to promote Kubota as being a good option in the market. That's his job. That's how he earns his living. It'd be malpractice or, to not do that. He has to, right? And I think it's great that Neil is doing such a good job of promoting the brands that he's affiliated with. That's his job. Just like when I take a product from Woodland Mills, it's my job to highlight the things I like about it. But I will not go to another brand of mill and say that I think they're going out of business. And that's what I took personally about Neil's video. I will play you exactly what he said so that I'm not misquoting him.
So how do I wrap this up? Buy stuff from me? No, it's not really the point here, right? You could be cynical and look at things that way, but full disclosure, I sell Kubota in New Holland. We are normally very cautious when making YouTube videos about discussing other tractor companies because of, negative perceptions that come along with that. We can sell our products on our own merits, and we don't need to throw stones at others in order to do it. I feel like there's a discussion here, an awareness that is missing from the tractor business today. If you're paying attention to, social media influencers that, make a lot of noise with a sponsored tractor that they have, if you're, seeing a lot of paid advertising from...
Well, I don't know. It's probably just me because I'm in this business. I make YouTube videos about tractors. But did you notice some pretty strong condescension in the way he chose his words there to say, when you see these YouTube people making a lot of noise, influencers making a lot of noise about other brands? Like, you mean just talking in our videos like you're doing? Is it okay for me to say I like Woodland Mills or any of the other brands I've ever worked with? Is it okay for you? Am I being oversensitive? Is this a me thing, or was that in there? So let's see.
If you're paying attention to, social media influencers that, make a lot of noise with a sponsored tractor that they have, if you're, seeing a lot of paid advertising from companies, you might lose this perspective of what the actual tractor business really looks like.
So I'm making noise and he's sharing important information. I needed clarity on that. So what I want to say is, what if there's a company right now that's making the best tractor on the market and then selling it for less than the competitors? Do you want to know about it? Or would you rather just say, I like only having two options? I'd rather only have two brands out there so I don't have to compare. What I can tell you is, if you want to only buy John Deere tractors, the best thing that can happen to you is a lot of competition, because it's going to put pressure on John Deere to perform and give you a good machine at a good price. Competition is important in this market. And if there is a manufacturer out there who's making a great tractor at a great price, somehow you have to find out about it. Well, how are you going to find out? They're going to have to advertise in some way to get their name out there, to get some business. And whenever I'm riding around in my truck, I hear radio commercials for John Deere. I hear radio commercials for Kubota and some of the other brands. And they are paying money for that to try to influence you and convince you to buy one of their tractors. That's called marketing. When I talk to tractor brands, they're trying to get country music people to endorse them. We'll give you $1,000 to say that you love this tractor, wear our hats, put it on a NASCAR. They're spending money to promote their tractors. And then you've got people who own dealerships, and they're promoting, and they're spending marketing, and they're making YouTube videos. And then the last bottom rung of how you market, apparently, is you can send one of these tractors to me, say, we're going to provide this to you. We want you to use it in your videos and say what you think. Now, out of all those things I mentioned, which do you think personally is the most trustworthy thing? So at most, there's between 8 and 12 people I'm aware of that have a sponsorship with a tractor brand. And I personally know almost all of those people. And they are phenomenal, salt-of-the-earth people that this isn't a big corporation. It's just some guy with a camera and some land, and he's making videos using his tractor, doing the best he can. And I'd rather see that guy benefit rather than a marketing agency. And I'd rather get my information from that guy. Now, to close all this out, I think Kubota makes a fantastic tractor. Everyone I've ever talked to who owned a Kubota really liked it. So I have nothing negative to say about Kubota. I've never heard someone come on here and complain, I had a Kubota and I hated it. They might be the best brand in the world. So I wasn't trying to say anything negative about Kubota. I just disagreed with Neil's video a little bit. And Neil probably won't like my video either. And that's okay. We don't all have to agree. But I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos. And I'll see you next time.